So today, we're diving into a major new deal. On the surface, it promises to bring peace to a country that's been devastated by war for decades. But what if there's more to it? We're going to break down this new agreement between the DRC and Rwanda and ask a really tough question. Is this really about peace, or is it about profit? Let's get right into it.
It's going to be a great miracle. Wow. Those are the words of former U.S. President Donald Trump, the man who actually brokered this whole thing. It's a pretty powerful and, optimistic way to frame a deal that's supposed to end decades of unbelievable bloodshed. But is it really that simple?
All right, so the official story starts right here, with what they're calling the Washington Accords. This peace deal was signed at a U.S. Peace Institute, which, interestingly, was just renamed after Trump himself. And its goal? It's a huge one, to finally bring some stability to the Eastern Congo. So at its heart, the agreement brings two old rivals to the table, the DRC and Rwanda, with the United States playing mediator. For something like 30 years, these two neighbors have been locked in this really awful conflict. And this deal, well, it's supposed to be the end of that story. But here's the thing. Before we can really analyze the deal, we have to talk about the staggering, almost unimaginable human cost of the war it's supposed to solve. People have called it Africa's forgotten war, and for good reason. It just rarely makes the headlines, even though the scale of the suffering is, well, it's immense. Just look at this timeline. You can see the conflict has these really deep roots going way back. But look at what's been happening just recently. In early 2025, the M23 rebels, that's a group the UN says has historical ties to and backing from Rwanda, they captured two huge cities. This was the absolute game changer. This is the event that basically forced everyone to the negotiating table in Washington. The real-world impact on people, it's just almost impossible to fully grasp. We're talking millions of lives lost over 30 years. Millions of people forced from their homes. A total collapse of government in entire provinces. Homes, schools, hospitals, all ruined. One expert just called it sheer devastation. This is the crisis this deal is meant to end. Okay, but this agreement, it turns out, isn't just about peace and security. There's another layer here. Running right underneath the surface is this incredibly powerful economic current, and it flows directly toward the massive mineral wealth buried in the eastern DRC. So you see, the Washington Accords are really two deals smashed into one. On one side, you've got the peace stuff. Stop fighting, respect the borders, cut off support for rebel groups. But on the other side, you have these economic agreements that give the U.S. and its companies access to the region's critical minerals. We're talking about the exact stuff you need for technologies like electric cars. Security analysts actually have a name for this. They call it extractive diplomacy. It's basically when peacemaking and getting your hands on natural resources get all tangled up together. And yeah, the term might be modern, but the story is an old one. Foreign powers using their political clout to get access to Africa's natural wealth.
And honestly, you don't even have to read between the lines on this one. This quote from Donald Trump makes the economic motive incredibly clear. He's framing the deal not just as a way to get peace, but as a straight-up business opportunity, where American companies will come in, pull resources out of the ground, and in his words, everybody's going to make a lot of money. So we get this huge optimistic announcement out of Washington. But on the ground in the Congo, and definitely among the experts who watch this region, there are some really serious doubts. The gap between the piece of paper that was signed and the actual reality of the conflict, well, it's already starting to show. I mean, there are some major red flags here. First off, fighting was literally still going on as the deal was being signed. And maybe even more telling, the presidents of the DRC and Rwanda didn't even show up for the ceremony. They sent their foreign ministers instead. The deal also says nothing about justice for the millions of victims, and it doesn't have any real enforcement plan. As one analyst put it, without fixing these core issues, the deal simply will not hold. And this brings us right back to the central question of this whole thing. When you peel back all the layers of this agreement, what's really at the heart of it? Is it about a genuine desire for peace? Is it a political win? Or is it about economic profit? So what's the real driver here? Of course you have the stated goal, genuine peace. But you absolutely cannot ignore the political win for Trump. We know he's been interested in a Nobel Peace Prize. And then there's that huge economic incentive, getting a hold of critical minerals, especially with China becoming more and more influential in the region. The truth? It's probably a messy mix of all three. So here's the bottom line. Most experts agree that just getting these two countries to sign anything is a historic step forward. But, the devil is always in the details, and maybe even more so in the implementation.
A signature in Washington means almost nothing if it doesn't actually stop the violence in Goma. And that leaves us with this one final question. Can an agreement that is so deeply wrapped up in political ambition and the race for rare earth minerals, can it truly deliver the lasting peace that millions of people in the Eastern Congo have been so desperately waiting for? For their sake, you just have to hope it can.